Good evening, everybody. Hi, Ole. So good to see you. Hi, Ole. Let's wait for everybody to come on and then we start. How are you doing, Ole? Hi, Mbali. Hi, Z. So good to see old faces. Mbali, I haven't seen or spoken to you in a while. I hope you're good. Hello, baby. Thanks, Ole. I'm also looking forward to it. Man, it's going to be a great one. It's going to be a great one. I hope everyone is good. Let's wait for other people to join in and then we start. You guys must ask questions, okay? Ask questions, please. Please ask questions so that this becomes an engagement and not just me speaking. Although, I mean, your sana load shedding, our life. Good to see you too, Mbali. Good to see you too. I hope everything is well with you. Yeah. Tag people on, guys. Let people come on. This is going to be a nice conversation because I think different about chilled. I want it to be all nice and chilled. Yeah, so love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. How was your guys' day? Before we go on, how was your guys' day? Mine was interesting. I have a lot of work that I'm busy with, but yeah, and a part of me was just like, diakula no kula, so maybe I should postpone the live. Then I thought, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do this. So how are you guys doing? How was your day? And if you hear me clearing my throat, that is because I'm not recovering. I have the flu. Yeah, and there's no mandipi. But I have this thing where I have to clear my throat every now and then. Which is why I'm even having tea right now. And salot. And salot. Olani Tabete. Hello, stranger. Good to see you. Hope you're good. Yo, ngakugcina nini. Hope you're good. Okay, so let's give it another minute. It's 4 minutes past 6. So let's give it another minute and then I will start. Flu sana. Winter is showing us flames. Showing us flames. Okay, so let's start and everyone will somewhat catch us as we go. Welcome everyone. Why is this table shaky? It's giving. What? Sorry. Yeah. Hey, scary young unstable. Good evening everyone and welcome to this conversation. This is part of the Pursuit of Freedom conversations. And this one is obviously different because we're not speaking to anyone. But we'll have these kind of sessions where I share a bit of what is in my heart, what I'm thinking about, different themes that, I want to explore. And so this is one of those. So we're talking self-love. today, which is an interesting topic because I think everyone is on that self-love buzz. Yeah, but we're obviously going to be taking a different angle to maybe what you're used to. So just ride with me, and obviously ask questions. It's a chilled conversation. I want it to be chilled. I don't want to be speaking at you, but I'd like for us to engage together. So maybe let me introduce myself first. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Mamkele Dial-Makhubalo. Maiden surname Dial, married Dial-Makhubalo, and I use both, and my name is long and my married surname is long, but I use all of them. So Mamkele Dial-Makhubalo. And what do I do? Originally from the Eastern Cape, but based in Johannesburg. And yeah, so that's okay. I think I'm back. I don't know what happened there. Sorry, guys. As I was saying, I was introducing myself. I hope you caught that first part. So what do I do? I am a self-published author. I've written 4 books, namely my Pain Perfected, Masterpieces, Love Unscripted, and Homeless, The Cost of Obedience. I'm a transformational speaker, and I speak on topics on personal development. I speak on overcoming trauma. I speak on so many things. Overcoming trauma, healing, and then obviously the coaching aspects of the work that I do, I also incorporate into speaking. And I am also a coach. And my coaching areas are personal development, they are in leadership, as well as organizational development, which incorporates career development. And so that's basically what I do. I'm a mom to a daughter who's 3. I'm a wife, obviously, as I've said. I am a granddaughter, no longer a daughter because both my parents passed on. So I'm a granddaughter, a daughter-in-law, in love, and you told me, and other things. So that's me in a nutshell, right? And my life is anchored on 4 things. And this is what I'm hoping that you will also get from this conversation. 1 is to make a transformative impact. 2nd one is to cultivate your mind. The 3rd one is to heal the soul. And the 4th one is to awaken purpose and dreams. So everything that I do is anchored on those 4 things. I have to make an impact. I have to cultivate the mind. And so the conversations I have are always, thought-provoking. I want people to be healed and live whole lives. And obviously through all of that, then we awaken you, we awaken the purpose in you, and we awaken your dreams. And so based on everything that I do, some of my clients call me the vision doula, because what I do is basically help you give birth to your vision. And so that's me in a nutshell. Today we're speaking, hi Matangana, we're speaking about love, self-love, and loving yourself through hard things. So I've written a lot of notes, and so that I don't derail, please forgive me if I look down. I'm just trying to keep track of everything point that I've got, right? So maybe let's start with talking about what is love. We know love to be described in the Bible as a concept of being patient, of being kind, of not being selfish. Love is not proud. Love is not self-serving, right? So we understand, I'm sure many of us understand the concept of love in biblical terms. I am a Christian, and so I refer to God quite a lot. And so, and the Bible, and I somewhat incorporate that even in my work. So if I do refer to God, just know that's who I am. But when I was thinking about this topic and thinking about talking about self-love, this morning I had a conversation with my husband, and we were talking about the struggle that most of us who are in business, sometimes actually even people who are in corporate, right, which is a struggle of you being able to place value on the work that you bring. And what does that mean? So when I started coaching professionally, so I always lead with this. Coaching for me is a spiritual gift, right? But because the Bible says we must count ourselves to be qualified in the things that God has called us to. I then obviously went on to study, but I'm also an addict to certificates. And so I went to study coaching. And so when I then began to coach professionally, because now I've got the certificate, at the time I started, which was around late 2019, beginning 2020, the price there for a session per hour was about 750, right? And I remember starting and feeling like, 750 is a lot. I feel like people are not going to be willing to pay that amount of money. And so I reduced from what the common number is. I reduced my number to 400 or 450. And that was my starting point. So as I started on the back foot, because I felt that people are going to feel that, this is overpriced and all of that. And the interesting thing about that is that this was me imposing my fears and me imposing my anxiety on people, right? Because I hadn't gone around and asked, would you be willing to pay this amount of money? But also because coaching is very foreign to Black people. It's a new thing to Black people. But and predominantly a lot of coaches have been white, and now Black people are coming into the party. And so it felt like, 450 feels safe for me, and it feels safe for other people. So I decided on behalf of other people that it feels safe for them. And I remember advertising and saying you can get 10 sessions for 400 per session, right? And then this lady responds and she's like, oh, great, I'd like to take on the coaching. And her assumption was that, and maybe the poster wasn't clear, but her assumption was you get 10 sessions for 400 Rand, right? And so I obviously explained that no, it's just 400 per session. And then she was like, okay, cool, I'm still going to do it, right? Which was a blessing. But this morning I was reflecting on this with my husband, and it made me realize, and then we started speaking about the relationship that we have with money, and the relationship and our fear of being able to say, no, I'm not comfortable with that price. Or if someone wants to negotiate your prices, you feel like, no, and you even go against the feeling of, I don't want to charge that. I don't want to accept that for what I'm going to offer. And so we were talking about this, and it dawned on me that many years ago, my biggest struggle was actually placing value on the work that I do. Not only on myself, because identity is very much attached to how we behave, but it was also a struggle of attaching value to the work that I bring. And you find that a lot, I'm saying this in the context of entrepreneurship, but you may find this even when you've had to negotiate for your salary, or even like when you've been given an offer and you feel like, hey, these numbers don't make me comfortable, but then you're scared to say, can we negotiate the number, or you have a contract and this contract is going to be a lifeline for you, but you are so scared of saying, you know what? Maybe I undercharged, and if I undercharge, can we negotiate and maybe increase the price a little bit? And so this example that I'm making regarding my relationship with money was part of my journey with learning what self-love looked like, and learning to do hard things in order for me to learn how to love myself. Because charging what is equivalent to not only my expertise, but also the work that it's taken for me to get here, I can't even quantify that. And so the journey for me to actually get to a place where I could price in accordance to what I was worth as a person, in fact what the work I'm going to deliver was worth, was such a journey for me, right? And we'll talk some other time about our relationship with money and the different dynamics that cause us to value ourselves less when it comes to having a conversation about money, what makes us scared to talk about money, what makes us scared to put a price on things that we can offer. But when I thought about my relationship with money and how hard it was for me when I started coaching to actually just say, I'm going to charge the bare minimum, which is $750, and lower that to how much I loved myself, right? We're back. Sorry about that. It seems like my connection is weird and that never happens. But anyway, and so you may be asking yourself, what do you mean? How does your relationship with money have to do with loving yourself? I feel that when we talk about love is a doing word, right? Love is a doing word. So when you are loving, you are doing. And so most often people attached doing hard things to and this is going to take too much effort from me, right? This is going to take too much time from me. This is going to take too much energy from me. And for the most part, the process of getting to love yourself is a process of hard work. The process of loving yourself is a process of learning how to accept yourself and accept yourself in the good lights as well as the negative lights. And most times we don't want to accept that we have shadows. There is light and darkness within us. And so integrating those two areas of our lives requires hard work, right? And so when you're going to the gym, you're going to put in hard work in order for you to get the results. But it's funny that we can attach it to particular things and not attach it to the whole of who a person is or the wholeness of our being. And so this conversation then stems from there, is that if I truly loved myself the way I do now, I would have understood that if I am fearful of people not knowing what coaching is, people being scared of paying that amount of money, to say, I'm going to charge this amount of money, but I'll be willing to teach people on what coaching is, so that they're able to see the value, right? But not undercut myself and start at a back foot. Because starting at a back foot for me personally meant that if I'm increasing my prices, I can't just jump from 450 now and I'm charging like 1,200 rand, because people are just like, no, kaloku thina sikwazi ungilasiswe 400. Yabo? And so that obviously impacted even my business and the growth of my business. But in learning value and in learning that I bring value, and if I can lead with value, then I lead from a place of love. And also I am loving the other person when I'm actually saying to them, I'm going to give you the greatest of all my expertise. I'm going to give you the greatest of myself. And in exchange, you're going to pay this amount of money. So it took me a long time to learn that. Now, because love is a doing word, right? When you look at the Bible speaks about the Lord gave his only son so that we could have life and have it more abundantly. And so most times we look at love as just, the soft life, you know? We want the soft life, we want to be comfortable. But the soft life takes hard work. And the soft life requires for you to do the hard things. Now, the hard things are different for everyone because our contexts are different. This example that I gave you about me and finances is not just a thing that surfaced when I was starting a business. It's a thing that started from like my childhood and not knowing the value of money, not knowing how to navigate my relationship with money, and not even knowing that I have a relationship with money or should have a relationship with money. And so navigating those hard things for me, anytime I had to write an invoice, my heart would pound. I'd have anxiety. It scared me, and it scared me because it felt like there was something about me putting a value to what I have to offer that is going to lead to rejection, right? So what is the hard thing that I had to do in order for me to cultivate love for myself? One was to understand, where does this problem come from? How did I even get to a point where I am challenged when it comes to pricing for work that, one, I am gifted with, but secondly, work that I've actually gone to school for? For something that other people were calling themselves coaches at the time with no certification, with nothing. And yes, yet I'm this person who I can't be charging this amount of money. And also the assumption that people are not going to see the value of the work that I have to bring. So I had to do the hard work of searching, where does that problem start from? And for me, it was an identity issue. It was an issue of, there's things we call core wounds in coaching. And one of my biggest core wounds is that I'm a burden, right? And so even if I do something for you, I would feel that, you don't need to do anything for me. You don't need to, don't praise, don't do anything, because I am literally, by me doing that for you, I am buying my space in your life, right? And so the virtue of my existence felt like a burden to people. And so if that is my script, then I was a burden in the context of relationships. I was a burden when it came to my career. I was a burden when it came to business. I was a burden when it came to my family. And I constantly say this to people that I've coached, and some of them are here, is that your life is not in compartments. Your life is not in boxes. Your life is one whole. And so if there is a lack or something surfaces for you in one area of your life, you will discover that that thing plays in all the different areas of your life, but you're not paying attention, which speaks to mindfulness and being present, to understand what your blind spots are, but to also understand the different things that you are struggling with, right? And so doing the hard work and going back into kind of the issues that we have to resolve within ourselves in order for us to live wholehearted lives is the process of doing hard things. And so doing the hard things is not just attached to the physical things that we have to do, right? Go and get that degree if that's a thing that is necessary for you. Go and pursue that relationship if that's a thing that's necessary for you. But what I've discovered most times is that the hardest things that we have to do are internal. The hardest things that we have to overcome are more internal than they are. And those things that we struggle with internally are the things that manifest in the physical. And so when I'm interacting with a client and saying, I'm charging 400 Rand, that is the physical manifestation of an emotional and psychological issue of me not seeing worth within myself. Does that make sense to you guys? So when you are looking at the process of loving yourself and learning to love yourself through hard things, you then have to learn to take responsibility. Responsibility for your feelings, which means you must be mindful and present enough to actually listen to yourself. Guys, I'm the kind of coach who is like, I look at the wholeness of you. And so when you do something that is not in alignment with what you want, your body is going to tell you. Other people, it's a tightening of your chest. Sometimes it feels like there's something heavy that you're carrying. Sometimes it's a headache. But even your facial expressions will tell you, I'm not comfortable with doing this, right? But what tends to happen is that you will go against what you're feeling. You'll go against what your soul and spirit are telling you and do the thing that you don't want. And what does that mean? It means, Ndobana, you learn to break promises to yourself. Now, many of us have learned to break promises to ourselves at a very young age. And if you continuously do that, imagine, I'm sure we've all been in relationships here. And when you're in a relationship with someone and that person breaks a promise, what does that cause? You don't trust that person, right? And your responses are constantly traumatic responses, especially if a person has disappointed you over and over and over again. So we are also guilty of imposing trauma internally to ourselves by breaking promises to ourselves. If you say to yourself, I am actually going to do this, and then you go against this that you said you're going to do, and break that promise to yourself, it will be easy for you to break the next promise to yourself. And then you do that consistently and enough times, you're going to be a person who lives in constant anxiety because you can't be trusted with yourself. Right? And so we must be responsible for our lives, because no one is going to come and save you. No one was going to come to me and say, Sima, I've gone around, thank you, I want you to coach me, but I've gone around and found out that people actually charge double what you charge. Could you please increase your prices or invoice me for more? No one was going to come to me and say that, because anyone who's going to save money is going to feel happy about saving money. And so I had to do the hard work of actually saying, to yourself, why are you a problem to yourself? This is delaying you. And why is this delaying you? Where does it stem from? And so I had to take responsibility. But the second thing that has to happen is that you must take accountability. And what is taking accountability? It is to say, I have to acknowledge that this situation that I'm in has got my fingerprints in it as well. I either said yes to something I was not supposed to say yes to, or I said no to myself and then said yes to the person, or said yes to the thing. I am also responsible for neglecting myself in the process. I'm also responsible for neglecting the principles that I have believed anchor my life, right? And so when you look at, and I thinking about values and beliefs that anchor our lives, I somewhat found myself in a project, for example, that I was not aligned to, not aligned to at all. But I said yes to it. And I said yes to it at the time because it was just like, I can do it, it's not going to take a lot of my time. And maybe I was also saying yes because it was a money thing. So after saying yes and starting to do the work, I could feel that I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. And now I'm trapped because, one, I've signed a contract. So I've said, yes, I'm going to do the work, right? Secondly, I've also taken on the person's deposit. And so now I can't say, hey, can I give you back your deposit? Also, there's a level of me, which is the integrity, that says, girl, you've got to see this through because your name is going to be on this thing. So do this and do it well. But the fact that I had said no to myself and not actually paused enough to ask, do I really want to do this? Is this something really aligned to my values, what I want in the future? Does it contribute to my career? Because I didn't do that work, I was stuck in a project that I didn't like, that I had to finish, right? And so there are many of these examples that you guys can probably also think about personally in your lives, where you've put yourself in a situation where you could have said no, but you didn't say no because you were not mindful, you weren't present, or you were trying to please the other person and scared of saying no, or feared rejection, or feared whatever it is that you feared, right? And when you look at decisions that you have to make, I constantly make this example of your life is in a spectrum of two ends. The one end is a fear end and the other one is a love end. When you lean or you lead with fear, I'm scared that this person is going to reject me, you will not get to experience freedom. Because freedom comes from love. So you have to ask yourself, say in a relationship context, what does loving me look like here? And then you answer that. What does loving the other person look like? And then you answer that. And when you weigh those two things, then you act based on love more than fear. Because what tends to keep us trapped and stuck is this thing of, I fear what the next is going to be. I fear that, Ubanbani may reject me. I fear that I may not be welcome in the space if I don't say yes to this thing. When you know in the deepest parts of you that you're not supposed to be there. And now you're expecting everyone to then come, but to come over your mess, because you could have easily sorted this out by making an analysis when you got into it. Do I really want to be here? So for that kind of person, doing the hard thing is actually taking time to say, let me be present with my emotions. What am I feeling? What am I seeing? I can't answer you right now. Give me a day so that I think about it and then come back to you. Those are the things that liberate us. And if you have a decision to make, constantly envision the spectrum of fear and love. And you constantly must be leaning towards love, because love is what is going to give you freedom, but it's what's going to give other people around you freedom, right? And that's how we also cultivate boundaries. It's to say, it's not that I don't like you. It's simply because I don't feel that I can give you my best right now. And so let's draw a boundary there. Or I no longer have the time to do particular things. Let's draw a boundary there. Or I can refer you to someone who's actually going to be able to help you, but I can't do it. Boundary, right? And so we have to cultivate these two principles, taking responsibility and taking accountability. And I think with accountability, we must also be aware of the people that are around us, the people that can actually keep us accountable to the things that we say we're going to do, right? So to love yourself, I wrote here, you must be secure with you. And secure with you means safe with you. Now, when I made that example about breaking promises to yourself, is that obviously when you're in a relationship, and I like making relationship examples because everyone has been in a relationship, so they understand it, they get it. Anytime you are in a relationship or have been in a relationship with someone who's constantly broken promises to you, or you've been the person who breaks promises to other people, there's this thing of, I can't trust you, so I'm not safe with you. And so the person can say, let's make plans, let's go to dinner. And you'll say yes because you want to go, but you'll also have the thing or that anxiety of this person may not come. If you've had nanny drama, that has also happened where you feel like, you know? So that feeling of anxiety, which is an internal shaking, is a feeling of, I'm not feeling safe, I'm not feeling protected right now. And so when we constantly avoid doing hard things, right? And as I've said, hard things are different to everyone. They depend on your personal context and what your experiences are. For someone else, doing a hard thing would be actually sitting still and not being busy doing everything, right? But for someone else, doing the hard thing is learning to say no to people. For other people, doing the hard thing is saving. For other people, doing the hard thing is choosing a career that is different to where they are. So there's a broad spectrum of hard things, and you must analyze in your life what the hard thing is right now. But when you choose to not do the hard thing, you're also saying, I can't be trusted with myself, and therefore you feel unsafe with yourself, right? You feel unsafe and untrusted with yourself. And even though we don't have a name for it most times, it comes as a feeling. It comes as a, I'm not sure if I deserve to be here. That's where imposter comes from. I'm not sure if I deserve this. Imposter. I'm not sure if I actually am worthy of this, right? So that feeling of not being safe with yourself, which remember is a traumatic experience, right? It's you imposing trauma on yourself. And I know we all have experienced different kinds of trauma. So that's to not negate the fact that we come from traumatic spaces. But you have a responsibility. Hear me. You have a responsibility to not harm yourself. And harming yourself does not come at the point where you want to commit suicide. Harming yourself comes when you refuse to do things that are going to liberate you. You have a responsibility to not be an instigator of trauma to yourself. If there's anything you take away from this conversation, it's that. You have a responsibility to not be that person to yourself. You don't have control over what other people can do, but what you have control over is how you treat yourself and the decisions and choices that you make, right? So, please do throw in your comments, guys, and your questions. I can see the comments. And so, whenever, you go to a doctor, you don't go to the doctor and be like, credentials. Some of us have even walked into practitioners' offices and not even looked at the practice number. So you don't even know if that person is truly a doctor or not. But you trust that if they're saying, I'm a doctor, I'm a doctor. And so you have to get to a place within yourself that you are that safe with yourself, that you don't have to scrutinize everyone who comes into your life because your level of discernment is so sharp, right? That you can cultivate relationships and connections and networks without second guessing yourself and without second guessing other people, right? Because, I said this to someone, I think 2 weeks ago, and we were just getting to know each other. And I said to her, I live a very beautiful life. And I live a very beautiful life because I've done the work, right? And she said, that's something you must say all the time when you introduce yourself. So I live a beautiful life because I've done the work. But the reason why I'm saying that, I'm making this example of you going to the doctor and not asking for credentials, is because you trust that that person is doing the right thing. You trust that that person is actually being truthful, honest, and is going to do their work with integrity. Can you be trusted with you? Do you trust you? Can you be trusted to fulfill the things that God has placed on you? Can you be trusted to walk into a room and deliver the purpose that God has given you? Can you be trusted? And that thing of being trusted is cultivated through doing the hard things. Is cultivated through having hard conversations with yourself. It's cultivated with discipline. When you feel like, I am the most ill-disciplined person ever. And you say, but I'm going to lean into it and I'm going to learn how to be a disciplined person, right? And discipline, by the way, I believe is an identity issue. So you're welcome to come and we have a one-on-one on why I believe that discipline is an identity issue. And maybe one of these days I'll have a conversation about that as well. But you go to the doctor and you trust that that person is going to do what they're going to do because you believe that when they have that white coat, they're doing the right thing. Can you be trusted to do the right thing? Can you be trusted to do the right thing when things are falling apart? Can you be trusted to not use people when things feel like they're falling apart? Can you be trusted to constantly lean into purpose and not be fearful of what your next is going to be? Can you be trusted? And that trust thing is a thing that is cultivated by doing the hard things. It's cultivated by leaving that relationship, leaving that job, leaving those spaces. It's cultivated by doing the hard things where you're able to make decisions and say, I know God is going to carry me through this one. Or I'm sure I can deliver here because I've done this before. And it reminds me of David when he's going to fight Goliath. And then he begins to say, I've got a track record. My track record says, I killed the bear. I killed the lion. So I've got evidence that I can do things. If David had not done the hard things when he was a shepherd, he wouldn't have been able to do the hard thing of killing Goliath. And in fact, killing Goliath was not a hard thing because he had built the muscle of being able to say, I win, I can take you down. So can you be trusted? Can you be trusted with the Goliaths of this world? Can you be trusted with the Goliaths in your family? Can you be trusted with the Goliaths in your life, in your friendship circles? Can you be trusted? Do the hard things. And as we close, when we break promises to ourselves, we obviously impose trauma. And when we act out of trauma, we go into extremities. It's either you go into a child mode, and child mode says you throw tantrums, you're not logical, you don't think. Parent mode says you're going to want to save people, right? And sometimes saving people is that thing of someone asks you for money, for example, money that you've got, but it's not money that you've got to pay for that thing. It's money that you're going to use for something else, but you self-sacrifice and give that person the money. And you do that against the alignment in you. You do that against that feeling of, I actually want to give. And when you do that, you don't do it genuinely. And so you simply are buying that person's attention or love or whatever, which is what is called people pleasing. And so you have to ask yourself, how many times have I disregarded myself in order to make other people feel good, to make other people feel safe, or to make other people feel okay? And maybe when you begin to ask yourself those questions, then you will be able to say, what is the hard thing that I need to do in order to love myself? And as I said, love is a doing word. So we don't love ourselves by sitting in the bathtub and having a bubble bath and saying, oh, today I'm just going to treat myself, have a glass of wine and have this bubble bath. That's not love. That's you caring for your body. What love is you saying, I'm going to choose myself in this moment. I'm going to choose God in this moment. I'm going to choose the values I have in this moment. I'm going to choose alignment in this moment. And it's going to be hard. It's going to take everything out of me. I'm going to choose healing. It's going to take everything out of me. I'm going to choose purpose. It's going to take everything out of me. But I'm going to choose to do the hard thing because I know that there's a reward at the end. And so as I close, I want to ask you, what is the hard thing that you have to do to show love to yourself? What is the hard thing that you have to do to give to you? Because if God gave his only son for you to have life and have it in abundance, what are the things that you have to give and give up in order for you to reclaim the life that God has for you and reclaim the abundance that God has for you? So, yeah, that's what I have for today. And so, yeah, ask yourself, how do I take responsibility here? How can I be accountable here? And accountable on both spectrums, right? So it's not just about you. How can I be accountable here? How do I create safety for myself here? How do I create safety for other people? And if you can ask yourself those questions, you will be able to live in freedom and you will be able to liberate other people as well. Because the minute that you're able to say no to people, you're giving them an opportunity to find solutions that are outside of you. And sometimes we say yes to things and people because we want to hold them hostage. We want them to constantly be like, I owe Usima, I owe Usima. I owe this breakthrough to Usima. And God doesn't want us to play God in people's lives. God wants us to free people when we don't have a purpose to serve in their lives. God wants us to, and he wants those people to free us if destiny is not aligning anymore. So what are the things that are hard that you have to do to love yourself, to honor yourself, to be patient with yourself, to be kind to yourself? What are the things you need to do? Yeah. Any questions, guys? Any questions? I know some people are joining late, But what are your questions? Do you guys have any questions? I can see the comments here. I think Liz, attaching value to your work. Yeah. And so even in doing the hard things, it was just an example that I was making when it came to my struggles with pricing. But when you attach value to you, there are places and spaces that you don't enter or don't go to. And even you may have been, there in those spaces and been active in those spaces. But because you understand the value in you, you're no longer a part of those spaces. So you have to ask yourself, does my value align to being here? Feeling unsafe with self. No question, just a thank you for allowing God to use you. Thank you so much. I don't know how to pronounce your handle, but Black Sky High. Okay, thank you, Black Sky High. Does anyone else have a question? Guys, I'm here for your questions, please. This is the one opportunity you can ask me a question and you don't have to pay for it. Because now I know my value. Okay. So it seems like you guys don't have questions, and maybe when people rewatch this and they will have the questions, but I'm gonna ask one more time. What can you say to someone who's constantly suffering from anxiety? So anxiety is such a broad concept, and I mean, there are medical reasons for experiencing anxiety, but most times anxiety comes from the feeling of being out of control, right? And so when you feel out of control, you have that thing. And I made this example in one of my coaching sessions, the group session, that if you're a person who does not train your core, and then you begin to do, that yoga, there's that yoga sign where you have your hand on top of your head, and then you lift one leg to put it either on your leg or on your knee, right? So when you have that to do that yoga sign, doing that requires core strength, and it requires your core to be worked out, because if you're going to do that, iko yakho ingabobi, you're going to start like tagazeling. And so I make that example because being out of anxiety, having anxiety feels like not training your core. It feels like everything is out of control. And so the first place I would look is, what are the things that are causing frustration to you right now? Maybe the top 3 things that are causing you to be frustrated or feel that you can't have a hold of everything, right? So I definitely would want to ask you that. But the second thing is that most times when we have anxiety, it's also this feeling of we have to be perfect and show up with perfection in every space. And when you impose that on yourself, you then put yourself in a position where you're going to fail, and anxiety is a result of fearing the failure, because if you can't control things and you can't do things, then you feel like you're going to fail. And so again, when you're looking at that perfectionism thing, is what are you trying to prove, and who are you proving it to, and why are you wanting to prove that thing to yourself, right? You have to be so conscious and cognizant of the different things that are moving in your life that cause you to have that feeling of anxiety. So what anxiety is basically is you feeling out of control. And so you then have to ask yourself, what are the things that are frustrating you? And when you're looking at those things that are frustrating you, can you do something with those things that are frustrating you? If they are within your control, then do something about them. But if they're not in your control, then learn to let go. But you don't learn to let go if that has been your system thinking for all your life, which is why you're going to come to coaching, and then we're going to speak about where this fascination of wanting to control things comes from, and then how do we rewire that for you to learn to be more relaxed and let go and allow things to just be. So it's a long process. I would also say exercise, because exercise is going to give you good feedback. It will open your mind so that your mind can also give you answers. It will open up your spirit. So you need to kind of activate all the different things. I don't suggest meditation immediately if you're not a person who hasn't meditated before, because you have to understand why you're meditating for you to commit to meditation. So for me, it would be, let's unpack what's causing the anxiety. Let's look at your life in its entirety, and then build a solution that's going to work for you when it comes to the anxiety. Most people are on anxiety medication as on prescribed medication, which I feel is not necessary. It's just that because people don't know or don't have access to other resources, they go straight into going to the doctor, and then the doctor is going to prescribe you medication. But there are ways for you to manage your anxiety. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety when I was in standard 7. And so I have lived with depression and anxiety since being a teenager, but I'm no longer on meds. I'm able to tell when I'm having that experience of anxiety, and I know how to work myself out of it, right? I'm able to sit in it without feeling it's going to harm me, but I can also work myself out of it. So yeah, I think there are a number of things that go on. Can you ever fully fake it till you make it when it comes to confidence and self-belief? The easiest question to that is no. The easiest question to that is no. You must remember that confidence and self-esteem are identity things, right? And most times, you not having a self-esteem shows up in behavior, right? It shows up. So it's in coaching, we have a thing that's called the iceberg metaphor. And so when you see an iceberg, the iceberg, you only see the top of the iceberg, but the bulk of the iceberg is underneath the water. And so the issue you have of self-esteem or self-confidence is a top of the iceberg issue, but it's caused by everything that's underneath the iceberg. And so when you're trying to change your behavior without understanding where your behavior comes from, you're going to fail, because you must understand where the behavior comes from in order to uproot it, right? And so we have to work into and go into the iceberg, the bulk of the issue, and say, okay, this is where it comes from. Let's uproot it. And when we uproot it, we then learn to change behavior. But most times, if you want to change behavior, it can work, but it's not going to be sustainable, because if a thing has been a part of your identity for a very long time, then that's what is going to happen all the time. Like, you'll keep on falling back into that trap, because it's somewhat wired in your brain and in your DNA that this is how we behave. And so you'll change the behavior and fall back into it, change behavior, fall back into it. So you have to go into the depth of what's causing you to not be self-confident and not have self-esteem, and then take it from there, and then change the behavior. I think I've answered. Okay, I'm gonna give one more opportunity for questions. Okay. No questions. Going once. Guys, don't be scared. Don't be scared. People are not going to judge you for the questions you ask. Ask the question. Ask the question. Because this is the opportunity where you could be helping yourself, but you also help other people. Because other people may be scared of asking the very same thing that you're scared of asking. So ask the question. Ask the question. Ask the question. So, okay. I think I've answered all the questions. Thank you for joining. Please do share this with all of your friends, your family, all the people in your space. I'm sure they could learn a thing or two or get something. And yeah, until the next one, I hope you guys have a blessed week ahead. And yeah, what is the hard thing you need to do in loving you? Bye, guys. Thank you for joining.